The morning sun painted Buckingham Palace in gold. Tourists lined the iron gates, cameras ready. Children sat on their fathers' shoulders. Everyone waited for the changing of the guard ceremony. It was supposed to be a normal Tuesday, but Royal Guard James Mitchell felt something was wrong. He stood perfectly still in his red uniform and bearskin hat. His face showed nothing. Years of training taught him never to break position. But his eyes moved, scanning, watching. A man in a gray jacket walked too close to the palace wall. His hands were in his pockets. His eyes darted left and right. Most tourists took photos. This man took none. James had been a royal guard for 8 years. Before that, he served in Afghanistan with the British Army. He learned to trust his instincts. Right now, those instincts screamed. The man stopped near a stone column. He pulled something from his jacket. Small. Black. He bent down quickly. When he stood up, his hands were empty. James's heart pounded. His grip tightened on his rifle, but he couldn't move. Guards don't move during ceremony. Breaking protocol could cost him his career. The man in gray melted into the crowd. If you want to see what happens next, hit that subscribe button right now. This story gets intense. The ceremony continued. Drums echoed across the courtyard. The crowd cheered as guards marched in perfect formation. James moved with them, his mind racing. What did that man leave behind? After the ceremony ended, James had 15 minutes before his next duty. He walked toward the stone column. His steps looked casual, professional, but inside, adrenaline surged. Behind the column, hidden in shadow, sat a black backpack. James froze. His training kicked in. Never touch suspicious packages. Call bomb disposal immediately. Follow protocol. But something made him look closer. A wire peeked from the zipper. Red and blue twisted together, and there was a sound, barely audible. A soft ticking. James's blood turned cold. The palace was full of people. Tourists, children, his fellow guards, staff members. Hundreds of innocent lives. He pulled out his radio. "This is Mitchell." Code red at the east wall. Possible explosive device. "Clear the area immediately." Static crackled. Then a voice responded, "Confirm, Mitchell. Bomb squad is 20 minutes out."
20 minutes.
James looked at the backpack again. The ticking grew louder. Or maybe that was just his imagination. His hands started to sweat inside his white gloves. He thought of his daughter, Emily. She was 7 years old. This morning, she hugged him before school and said, "Be brave today, Daddy." He thought of his wife, Sarah. She always worried when he went to work. "Just another day standing still," he would tell her with a smile. This was not just another day. Palace security began evacuating tourists. People moved slowly, confused. Some complained. They didn't understand the danger. Children cried. Parents grabbed their hands and pulled them away. But it wasn't fast enough. James knew bomb disposal protocols. He attended the training courses. But he never imagined he'd face this moment. The ticking seemed faster now. Was it on a timer? Was someone watching, ready to detonate remotely? His commanding officer's voice crackled through the radio. "Mitchell, fall back. Do not approach the device." "That's an order." James stared at the backpack, then at the crowd still filing out of the courtyard. Too many people, too close. If this thing exploded now, ... he made a decision that would change everything. Sir James said into his radio, his voice steady, despite the fear coursing through him, "I'm taking a closer look." "Negative, Mitchell. Stand down." James switched off his radio. He knelt beside the backpack. His hands trembled as he reached for the zipper. Every nerve in his body screamed to run. But he couldn't, not when so many lives hung in the balance. The zipper opened with a soft sound. Inside, James saw wires. Lots of them. Red, blue, green, yellow. They connected to a phone screen that glowed with numbers. Countdown timer. 8 minutes and 43 seconds. 8 minutes, till hundreds of people died. Asterisk. James's mind raced. 8 minutes. The bomb squad was still 15 minutes away. Math didn't lie. This bomb would detonate long before help arrived. He looked at the device more carefully. The wires connected to what looked like plastic explosives. Enough to level half the courtyard. Enough to kill everyone still nearby. His hand shook. He wasn't a bomb technician. He was a soldier, a guard. He knew how to fire a rifle and stand at attention. Not this, but he had to try. James remembered fragments from his military training. Bomb disposal basics. Every soldier learned them. Cut the wrong wire, and the device explodes instantly. Cut the right one, and it disarms. The problem was figuring out which wire was which. 7 minutes and 12 seconds. Through the courtyard gates, James saw tourists still evacuating. Security tried to move them faster, but people stopped to take photos. They had no idea death ticked away meters behind them. A little girl dropped her teddy bear. She broke free from her mother and ran back toward the palace to get it. No. James wanted to shout, but he couldn't cause panic. That would create chaos. People would stampede. More would die. The girl grabbed her bear, smiled, and ran back to her mother. James exhaled. His breath came fast and shallow. Focus, he told himself. Focus. He examined the wires again. Standard explosive devices used a simple circuit. Power source to detonator. Break the circuit, stop the explosion. But which wire carried the power? 6 minutes and 30 seconds. James's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out. A text from Sarah. Emily's school play is tonight. Don't be late. She's so excited for you to see her. Love you. His throat tightened. What if he never saw that play? What if Emily grew up without a father? No, he couldn't think like that. James switched his focus back to the bomb. 3 main wires connected to the phone. Red, blue, and green. The red wire ran to the positive terminal. Blue to negative. Green disappeared into the explosives themselves. In most basic devices, cutting power stops the timer. That meant either red or blue. But what if this wasn't a basic device? 5 minutes and 48 seconds. James's commanding officer appeared at the edge of the courtyard. Mitchell. Step away from that device. Now. James ignored him. His fingers traced the blue wire. It felt thicker than the others. More insulated. That might mean it carried more current, or it might be a decoy. Bomb makers knew people thought this way. They designed traps. Cut the obvious wire, and the backup trigger activates. 4 minutes and 59 seconds. Sweat dripped down James's face. His red uniform felt suffocating. The morning sun beat down on his bearskin hat. He wanted to tear it off, but his hands couldn't leave the bomb. More security arrived. They formed a perimeter, pushing the last tourists away. James's fellow guards watched from a distance. He saw fear in their eyes. One of them was Marcus, his best friend. Marcus served with him in Afghanistan. They survived firefights together, saved each other's lives. Marcus took a step forward. James shook his head. Don't come closer, the gesture said. Marcus stopped. His face showed anguish. For minutes and 11 seconds, James made his choice. The blue wire. He reached into his pocket for his utility knife. Every royal guard carried one. Usually, they used them to cut threads from uniforms or open packages. Today, James would use his to save lives or die trying. His hand steadied as he opened the blade. Strange how calm he felt now. The decision was made. No going back. He positioned the knife against the blue wire. 3 minutes and 53 seconds. Please, he whispered. Let this be right. He squeezed. The blade cut through the insulation. The wire's copper core gleamed in the sunlight. One more cut, and the circuit would break. James pressed harder. The wire snapped for one terrible moment. Nothing happened. The timer kept counting. 3 minutes and 48 seconds. 3 minutes and 47 seconds. James's heart sank. Wrong wire then? The screen flickered. The numbers jumped. 3 minutes and 47 seconds became 3 minutes and 1 second. James's eyes widened. What was happening? The timer accelerated. 3 minutes became 2 minutes. 2 minutes became 1 minute. No, James breathed. Cutting the blue wire didn't stop the bomb. It triggered a failsafe. A final countdown. 55 seconds. James had just made everything worse. The bomb would explode in less than a minute. There was no time to run. No time to warn anyone else. He stared at the remaining wires. Red and green. One of them might stop this. Or both might be dummies. Maybe the bomb was designed to explode no matter what. 43 seconds. James thought of Emily, her laugh. The way she hugged him before school. He thought of Sarah. Her smile. The life they built together. 30-7 seconds. His hands moved without thinking. Training took over. When you can't make the perfect choice, make any choice. Action beats paralysis. He grabbed the red wire. 31 seconds. This was it. If he was wrong, the explosion would vaporize him instantly. He wouldn't feel pain. Just a flash of light, then nothing. But everyone nearby would die too. 20-8 seconds. James closed his eyes, said a silent prayer, hoped his family would understand why he died today. 20-5 seconds. He cut the red wire. The screen went black. Silence. James didn't move. He couldn't breathe. Was he dead? Was this what death felt like? No. He could still hear his heartbeat. Feel the stone beneath his knees? Smell the morning air. The screen stayed black. No countdown. No ticking. Nothing. The bomb was dead. James's hands dropped to his sides. His knife clattered to the ground. His entire body shook. Adrenaline drained away, leaving him hollow. Mitchell. His commanding officer ran toward him. Are you insane? James couldn't answer. He stared at the disabled bomb. At the cut wires hanging loose. He'd done it. Somehow, impossibly, he'd stopped it. The bomb squad arrived 3 minutes later. Men in heavy protective gear rushed forward. They carefully examined the device, their faces grim behind their helmets. The lead technician knelt beside James. Did you cut these wires? James nodded. Do you have any idea how lucky you are? The technician's voice was harsh. This was a sophisticated device. Triple redundancy. Anti-tamper mechanisms. You could have killed everyone here. But I didn't, James said quietly. By pure luck. The technician stood up. You're either the bravest man I've ever met or the biggest fool. Maybe both, James thought. Security escorted James away from the scene. His legs felt weak. His commanding officer walked beside him, face red with anger. What were you thinking? The officer demanded. You violated direct orders. You risked hundreds of lives. You could face court-martial for this. James stopped walking. He looked his superior in the eye. That bomb had 8 minutes on the timer. You said the squad was 20 minutes out? I did the math. That's not your call to make. Then whose call is it? James's voice rose. Those people out there. Those children. They'd all be dead right now if I followed orders. The officer's jaw clenched. For a moment, neither man spoke. Finally, the officer looked away. You're suspended pending investigation. Turn in your weapon and report to my office tomorrow morning. James unbuckled his rifle. Handed it over. 8 years of service. 8 years of perfect duty. Gone in one morning, but everyone was alive. That had to count for something. News crews arrived within the hour. Cameras, reporters, microphones shoved in faces. Palace security tried to keep them away, but information leaked fast. By noon, James's face was on every news channel in Britain. Royal Guard defuses bomb at Buckingham Palace. Hero or reckless? Guards' dangerous gamble sparks debate. Bomb scare at Palace, what we know. James sat in a holding room, watching the coverage on a small TV. His phone buzzed constantly. Messages from friends, family, reporters requesting interviews. He ignored them all, except one. Sarah, Double quotes, James. Are you okay? I saw the news. Please call me. His fingers trembled as he dialed. She answered on the first ring. James? I'm okay, he said. You're saying you almost died. That you cut wires on a bomb? Tell me it's not true. James closed his eyes. I can't tell you that. Sarah's breath caught. For several seconds, she said nothing. When she finally spoke, her voice shook. You promised me. You promised this job was safe. Standing guard. Ceremony. That's all I know. Emily could have lost her father today. I know why. Sarah's voice broke. Why would you do something so dangerous? James thought about the little girl who dropped her teddy bear. About the tourists taking photos. About all the people who almost died, because no one else could, he said simply. Sarah cried. James listened, his heart breaking. He wanted to hold her, tell her everything would be okay, but he wasn't sure it would. That evening, detectives came to interview him. They needed his statement. Every detail. Every decision, James told them everything. About the man in the gray jacket, the suspicious behavior, the backpack behind the column. Can you describe this man? A detective asked. James closed his eyes, remembering. 40s. Short brown hair. Average height. Gray jacket. Dark jeans. He had a scar above his left eyebrow. Small. Maybe an inch long. The detective wrote quickly. Anything else? His shoes. They were expensive. Italian leather. Didn't match the rest of his clothes. Good. They showed James surveillance footage from Palace cameras. Hours of video. Hundreds of faces then. James saw him there. He pointed at the screen. That's him. The detective froze the image. Enhanced it. The man's face became clearer. Do you recognize him? James asked. The detective exchanged glances with his partner. We need to make some calls. They left James alone again. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Finally, the door opened. A woman in a dark suit entered. She looked official. Government. The kind of person who dealt with serious threats. Mr. Mitchell, she said. I'm Agent Helen Price. Me-5. James sat up straighter. MI5. British intelligence. This was bigger than a random attack. The man you identified, Agent Price continued, as Anton Volkov. Russian national. Known associate of several extremist groups. We've been tracking him for 3 months. What does he want? That's classified. Agent Price's expression remained neutral. But I can tell you this. The bomb you disabled was meant to send a message. A demonstration of capability. There are more, James said. It wasn't a question. Agent Price didn't answer directly. Your actions today prevented a tragedy, but they also disrupted a larger operation. Volkov knows? We're onto him now. That makes him dangerous. Am I in danger? Possibly. You're the reason his plan failed. Some people don't forgive that. James felt cold. He thought about Sarah and Emily, about their little house in Surrey, their normal, quiet life. What do I do? For now, stay vigilant. We're increasing security around you and your family. And Mr. Mitchell? Agent Price leaned forward. Don't speak to the press. Don't give interviews. The less public attention on you, the safer you are. She left without another word. James sat alone in the holding room. The TV still played news coverage. His face appeared again and again. Reporters speculated about his background, his military service, whether he'd be decorated or court-martialed. He didn't care about any of that. He just wanted to go home. They finally released James at midnight. A security car drove him home. 2 plainclothes officers followed in another vehicle. His new reality, Sarah waited at the door. She didn't say anything, just pulled him into her arms and held on tight. I thought I'd lost you, she whispered. James buried his face in her hair. I'm here. I'm okay. They stood like that for a long time. Then Emily appeared at the top of the stairs, rubbing her eyes.
Daddy.
Her small voice cut through the darkness. James went to her. Picked her up even though she was getting too big for it. She wrapped her arms around his neck. "Mummy said you were very brave today." James's throat tightened. "I just did my job, sweetheart. Like a superhero." He managed a small smile. "Something like that." He carried Emily back to bed, tucked her in, kissed her forehead. "Will you be brave again tomorrow?" she asked sleepily. "Every day," James promised. After Emily fell asleep, James and Sarah sat in the kitchen. Tea grew cold in their cups. Neither drank. "They're saying you might lose your job," Sarah said finally. "I know. Was it worth it?" James thought about the question, about the people he saved, the lives that continued because of his choice. "Yes," he said. "Even if I lose everything else?" "Yes." Sarah nodded slowly. "I'm terrified, but I'm also proud of you." He went to bed but didn't sleep. James lay awake, replaying the day, the ticking, the countdown. The moment he cut that final wire, outside, a car engine idled. Security watching their house, protecting them from threats he couldn't see. Morning came too fast. James got 3 hours of sleep, maybe less. He dressed in civilian clothes, jeans and a sweater. It felt wrong not wearing his uniform. His phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. "The lads want to see you. Meet us at the usual spot?" The usual spot was a pub near the barracks. James and his fellow guards went there after duty. It was their place, away from tourists and cameras. James texted back, "Give me an hour." He found Sarah making breakfast. Emily sat at the table, swinging her legs. "Are you going out?" Sarah asked. "Just to see the lads. I'll be back soon." Sarah nodded, but worry creased her forehead. Everything made her worry now. The pub was quiet when James arrived. Too early for the lunch crowd. His fellow guards sat at a corner table. 5 of them, all in civilian clothes. They stood when they saw him. No one spoke. Then Marcus stepped forward and grabbed James in a bear hug. "You mad bastard," Marcus said. "You beautiful, insane, mad bastard." The others joined in, patting his back, shaking his hand. The relief was obvious. They could have lost him yesterday. They sat down. Someone ordered a round. James stared at his pint. "Saying you're suspended," one guard said. "Daniel Young, only been on duty 6 months. Pending investigation," James confirmed. "That's rubbish. You saved hundreds of lives. I also violated direct orders." "Because the orders were wrong," Marcus said firmly. Anyone with half a brain could see that. The others nodded in agreement. But James knew military justice didn't work on common sense. It worked on protocol, rules, chain of command. He'd broken all of those. "What's the word from command?" James asked. Marcus lowered his voice. "Mixed. Some officers want you court-martialed. Say you set a dangerous precedent. Others are pushing for a commendation. It's political now. Political." That meant his fate depended on which side won the argument, not on what was right. "There's something else," another guard said. "Peterson. Older. Close to retirement. That man you identified, Volkov? They found his safe house this morning." James leaned forward. "And empty. He's in the wind." But they found plans. Blueprints. Not just of Buckingham Palace, Westminster, the Tower of London, Parliament. The table went silent. The implications were clear. Yesterday's attack was just one target. There were more planned. "MI5 thinks he had help," Peterson continued. "Someone inside. Someone who knew security protocols." "A mole," James said. "They're investigating everyone. Guards, staff, police, anyone with access." James felt sick. Someone they worked with. Someone they trusted. That person helped plant a bomb at the palace. Do they have suspects? If they do, they're not telling us. The conversation shifted to lighter topics. Sports, families. But the tension remained. Everything felt different now. The job they once considered ceremonial had become dangerous. James left after an hour. The security car followed him home. Inside, Sarah and Emily were gone. A note on the kitchen table explained they'd gone to her mother's house. Thought we could use some space. Back tonight. Love you. James crumpled the note. He understood. Sarah needed to feel safe. So did Emily. And right now, home didn't feel safe. He spent the afternoon cleaning, organizing, anything to keep his hands busy. His mind wouldn't stop replaying the bomb. The wires, the countdown, his phone rang. Unknown number, hello. Mr. Mitchell, this is Agent Price. James straightened. What's wrong? We need to talk. In person. Can you meet me when? Now, there's a cafe on Bridge Street, near Westminster. I'll text you the address. The line went dead. James stared at his phone. MI5 wanted to meet. That couldn't be good news. He texted Sarah. Have to go out. Work-related. Be careful. Cafe was small. Quiet. Agent Price sat at a back table facing the door. Professional habit. Always watch the entrance. James sat across from her. She slid a folder across the table. What's this? Background on Volkov. We're cleared to share it with you now. James opened the folder. Photos, documents, intelligence reports. Anton Volkov. Age 43. Former Russian military. Dishonorably discharged after an incident in Chechnya. Suspected ties to multiple terrorist organizations. Known for sophisticated bomb-making. Why target Buckingham Palace? James asked. Symbolism. The palace represents British power. British tradition. Destroying it sends a message. What message? Agent Price leaned back. That nowhere is safe. That even the most protected places can be attacked. James closed the folder. You said he's still out there? Yes. And we believe he'll try again? When? We don't know. Could be days. Could be weeks. But Volkov doesn't give up easily. Yesterday's failure will make him more determined. What does this have to do with me? Agent Price's expression grew serious. Volkov knows you stopped his plan. Your face has been all over the news. You're not anonymous anymore. You think he'll come after me. We think it's possible. That's why we've assigned protection to you and your family. James felt anger rising. My daughter is 7 years old. She shouldn't need protection. I agree. But this is the reality we're dealing with. What do you want from me? Agent Price pulled out another document. Your commanding officer wants you court-martialed. But I convinced him to delay the proceedings. Why? Because I want to offer you something else. A chance to help us catch Volkov. James stared at her. I'm not a spy. No, but you're a soldier. You're trained. You're observant. And most importantly, Volkov knows who you are. You want to use me as bait? Agent Price didn't deny it. We want to draw him out. Make him think you're vulnerable, exposed. And when he makes his move, we'll be ready. And if something goes wrong, we'll do everything we can to protect you. Everything they could. That wasn't a guarantee James thought about. Emily, Sarah, their life together. Then he thought about the people at the palace yesterday. The ones who almost died. If I say no? He asked, then you go back to suspension. Possibly court-martial. And Volkov stays free to plan his next attack. James closed his eyes. Some choice. I need to think about it. You have 24 hours, Agent Price said. After that, the offer expires. She stood and left. James sat alone in the cafe. Outside, London moved at its usual pace. Cars, buses, people living their lives. None of them knew how close they'd come to tragedy yesterday. None of them knew another. Attack was coming, and James had to decide if he was willing to risk everything to stop it. James drove home in silence. The security car followed at a distance. Always there. Always watching. His new shadow, Sarah and Emily, were back when he arrived. Emily ran to him immediately. She'd drawn a picture at her grandmother's house. A man in a red uniform with a big smile. That's you, Daddy, she said proudly. James hugged her tight. How could he explain what Agent Price had asked? How could he tell Sarah he was considering becoming bait for a terrorist? After Emily went to bed, James told Sarah everything, About the meeting, about Volkov, about the choice he had to make. Sarah's face went pale. They want to use you as bait? Like you're some kind of worm on a hook? They need to catch him before he strikes again. And what about us? What about Emily? What if something happens to you? James reached for her hand. I know it's dangerous. But if I don't help, more people could die. You're not responsible for everyone, James. Sarah's voice cracked. You've already saved hundreds of people. Isn't that enough? What if it happens again? What if next time? I could have stopped it, but didn't. Sarah pulled her hand away. She stood up, pacing. This isn't fair. You're a royal guard, not a secret agent. This isn't your job. Maybe it is now. She stopped pacing, looked at him with tears in her eyes. I can't lose you. Emily can't lose you. You won't. You don't know that. She was right. He didn't know. Nobody could promise he'd survive if Volkov came after him. They went to bed angry. Sarah turned away from him. James stared at the ceiling, mind racing. He thought about his father, a firefighter who died running into a burning building to save a child. James was 12 when it happened, old enough to understand his father made a choice. Duty over safety. James grew up proud of that choice, but also angry. His father chose strangers over his own family. Now James faced the same decision. Morning came. James still hadn't decided. He made breakfast. Emily chattered about school. Sarah barely spoke. His phone buzzed. A text from Agent Price. Decision time. Meet me at the same cafe. Noon. James looked at his family. Emily laughing at something on TV. Sarah pretending to read the newspaper but not turning pages. He knew what he had to do. He'd known all along. The cafe was busier at noon. Agent Price sat at the same table. She didn't ask his decision. His face probably told her. I'll do it, James said. But I have conditions. Name them. My family gets round-the-clock protection. Not just a car following us. Real security. Armed officers at the house. Done. Anything happens to me, they're taken care of. Financially, everything. We can arrange that. I want updates. Everything you know about Volkov. Where he might be. What he's planning? No secrets. Agent Price hesitated on that one. I'll share what I can. That's not good enough. It's the best I can offer. Some information is classified above both our pay grades. James nodded slowly. He'd pushed as far as he could. So how does this work? He asked. Agent Price pulled out a tablet. Showed him surveillance photos. We're going to make you visible. Public. Create opportunities for Volkov to strike. Like what? Tomorrow, you're doing a press conference. Talking about the bomb. Your heroism. We'll leak your location afterwards. Make it seem like you're careless about security. And when he comes, we'll have teams everywhere. Snipers, undercover agents. The moment Volkov shows his face, we take him down.
Ow.
What if he sends someone else? A proxy. Then we capture them and make them talk. It sounded simple. Too simple. When have plans ever gone perfectly? James asked. Agent Price almost smiled. Never. That's why we prepare for everything going wrong. They spent the next 2 hours going over details. The press conference. The route James would take afterwards. The safe house where his family would stay. Sarah's not going to like this, James said. Does she need to know all the details? James shot her a look. You want me to lie to my wife? I want you to keep her safe. Sometimes that means not telling her everything. James hated that logic, but he understood it. The less Sarah knew, the less she'd worry. Or maybe that was just him lying to himself. He went home that evening with a plan he couldn't fully explain. Sarah looked at him across the dinner table. You're going to do it? She said. Not a question. Yes. Even though I asked you not to, because people's lives depend on it. Emily looked between them. Even at 7, she sensed the tension. Are you and Mummy fighting? She asked. No, sweetheart, James said. We're just talking about grown-up things. Sarah stood abruptly. Started clearing dishes. Her movements were sharp, angry. That night, James slept on the couch. Or tried to. Mostly, he stared at the ceiling, thinking about tomorrow. The press conference was at 10. Palace officials chose a grand room with portraits of past monarchs. Cameras lined the back. Reporters filled every seat. James sat at a long table. His commanding officer sat beside him. So did a palace spokesperson. They'd all agreed on what James could and couldn't say. The spokesperson talked first. About palace security. About protocols. About how yesterday's incident was handled professionally. Then it was James's turn. Cameras flashed. Reporters leaned forward. This was the moment they wanted. The hero guard speaking publicly for the first time. On Tuesday morning, James began, I observed suspicious behavior near the palace grounds. Following my training, I investigated and discovered an explosive device. The room erupted with questions. Reporters shouted over each other. Did you know it was a bomb right away? Were you scared? Why didn't you wait for the bomb squad? James answered carefully, sticking to the script. But his mind wandered. Somewhere out there, Volkov was watching this, seeing James's face, hearing his voice. Come find me, James thought. Let's end this. After the press conference, James left through the main entrance. Exactly as planned. His security detail stayed back. Making it look like James was alone, he walked to his car, parked 2 blocks away. His heart pounded with every step. Agent Price's voice crackled in his hidden earpiece. We have eyes on you? 6 surveillance teams in position. James unlocked his car, sat inside, started the engine. He's not going to strike in broad daylight, James said quietly. We know. But we need him to see you're exposed. Vulnerable. James drove home. The route took him through busy streets, past shops and restaurants. Normal London life, but nothing felt normal. At home, Sarah and Emily were packing. They'd be moving to the safe house tonight. Just temporary, James told them. A few days at most. I don't want to go, Emily said. My toys are here. We'll take your favorites, Sarah said gently. 2 agents arrived at 6, young, professional. They helped carry luggage, checked every room, made sure the house was secure before they left. James hugged Emily goodbye. Be good for Mummy. When will you come visit? Soon, I promise. Sarah didn't say anything, just looked at him with an expression he couldn't read. Anger? Fear? Resignation? Then they were gone. The house felt empty without them. James sat in the living room, waiting. Agent Price said Volkov would need time to plan, to find an opening. Maybe days. Maybe longer. But James didn't think it would take that long. Men like Volkov operated on pride. Yesterday's failure would eat at him. He'd want revenge. Want to prove he couldn't be stopped by one guard? Night fell. James made dinner. Ate without tasting it. Watched TV without seeing it. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Got lucky, hero. Next time you won't. James's blood ran cold. He forwarded the message to Agent Price immediately. Her response came seconds later. Tracing now. Stay inside. Lock all doors. James moved through the house. Checked every lock. Every window. The house was secure. But secure didn't mean safe. Another text arrived. Enjoying your last night. Then another. Does your daughter know her father won't see her grow up? James's hand shook. Volkov wasn't just threatening him. He was threatening Emily. The phone rang. Agent Price. The texts are bouncing through multiple servers. We can't trace them. He's using sophisticated routing. He mentioned Emily. Agent Price's pause said everything. The safe house is secure. We've doubled the guard. That's not enough. It has to be. James ended the call. He grabbed his old military duffel bag from the closet. Inside were things he hadn't touched in years. His service pistol. Extra ammunition. A tactical knife. He'd hoped never to need them again. Now. He assembled them on the kitchen table. Loading, checking, preparing. If Volkov wanted to come for him, let him come. James was ready. The first 3 days passed slowly. James stayed in the house. Agent Price's team maintained surveillance from unmarked vans parked nearby. Nothing happened. No more texts. No threats. Just silence. Sarah called every evening. Emily wanted to talk about school, about her friends. She asked when they could come home. Soon, James always said. He hoped it was true. On the 4th night, everything changed. James was making tea when the kitchen light flickered. Once, twice, then went out completely. He froze. The house went dark. Outside, streetlights still glowed. Just as power was cut, James grabbed his pistol from the table, clicked off the safety. His military training flooded back. Check corners. Control breathing. Stay sharp. He moved to the window. The surveillance van was still there, but something felt wrong. His phone buzzed. A text from Agent Price. Power outage reported in your area. Teams moving in. But this wasn't random. James knew that. Volkov had found him. A sound came from upstairs. Soft, like someone moving carefully. Testing floorboards. James's heart raced. Someone was in the house. He moved to the staircase. Each step climbed slowly, silently, his pistol raised. Ready, the sound came from his bedroom. The door was slightly open. He'd closed it this morning. He always closed it. James pressed against the wall, counted to 3, then pushed the door open. The room was empty. Window closed. Nothing disturbed, but he smelled something. Cologne, sharp, expensive. Someone had been here. Seconds ago, a voice spoke from behind him. Drop the weapon. James spun. A man stood in the hallway. 40s, short brown hair. Scar above his left eyebrow, bald. He held a pistol aimed at James's chest. His hand was steady. Professional, said. Drop it, Volkov repeated. His accent was thick. Russian. Cold James lowered his pistol slowly. Set it on the floor. Kick it away. James complied. The weapon slid across the hardwood. Out of reach. You're the one who ruined my plan, Volkov said. The brave guard. The hero? Where's your backup? James asked. You don't strike me as the type to work alone, Volkov smiled. No warmth in it. My team is keeping your surveillance friends busy. An anonymous bomb threat called in 3 streets over. They all rushed to respond. Smart. Draw away the protection. Leave James vulnerable. What do you want? James asked. What I want. Volkov stepped closer. I want to make an example. Show the world that heroes die just like everyone else. You won't get away with this. I've gotten away with worse. Volkov's finger moved to the trigger. James prepared to dive. Tackle him. Anything to survive the next second. Then glass shattered downstairs. Multiple windows breaking at once. Aimed police. Get down. Volkov's eyes widened. He'd been outplayed. The bomb threat was anticipated. Agent Price had kept a team hidden, waiting. Volkov turned his gun toward the stairs. James didn't hesitate. He launched himself forward, grabbed Volkov's arm, forced the pistol upward. The gun fired. The bullet punched through the ceiling. Plaster rained down. They struggled. Volkov was strong, trained. He threw an elbow that caught James in the ribs. Pain exploded. James stumbled back. Volkov aimed again, this time at James's head.
Freeze.
A tactical officer appeared at the top of the stairs. Red laser dots painted Volkov's chest. Volkov looked at James, then at the officers, then made a decision. He turned the gun on himself. No. James shouted. The shot was deafening in the small hallway. Volkov's body crumpled. Blood spread across the floor. James fell to his knees. Officers rushed past him. Checked Volkov's pulse. Called for medics, but James could tell from their faces. Volkov was dead. Agent Price arrived 20 minutes later. Paramedics were loading Volkov's body into an ambulance. Police processed the scene. Are you hurt? She asked James. I'm fine. He wasn't. His hands shook. His ears rang from the gunshot. He chose death over capture, Agent Price said. We might never know if he was working alone. The man in the gray jacket, James said suddenly. At the palace. That was him. But someone helped him get inside. Someone with access. We're still investigating. That's not good enough. There's a traitor somewhere. Someone who helped plan this attack? Agent Price's expression was grim. I know, and we will find them. James was taken to a hospital, checked for injuries. Given sedatives, he refused. He needed to stay alert. Sharp Sarah arrived with Emily. They'd been driven from the safe house under heavy guard. Emily ran to him. James caught her in his arms, held her tight. I'm okay, sweetheart. Everything's okay. Sarah looked at the bandage on his forehead from where Volkov's elbow had split the skin, at the exhaustion in his eyes. No, she said quietly. It's not okay. It went home the next day. The house had been cleaned, windows replaced. The blood was gone from the upstairs hallway. But James could still see it, still smell it. The palace reinstated him. No court-martial. Instead, they awarded him the Queen's Gallantry Medal. A ceremony was planned. Press coverage. The whole spectacle. James didn't care about any of it. 2 weeks later, Agent Price called him. We found the mole. James met her at MI5 headquarters, a secure building in central London. She led him to an interrogation room with a one-way mirror. Inside sat a man James recognized. A palace security supervisor, someone who'd worked there for 15 years. His name's Richard Hollis, Agent Price said. Volkov paid him £50,000 to provide blueprints and security schedules. James stared at the man through the glass. Why? Gambling debts? He was desperate. People almost died because of him. I know. Hollis looked up at the mirror. He couldn't see them, but somehow it felt like he was looking right at James. What happens to him? James asked. Prison. Long sentence. Treason charges. James turned away. He'd seen enough. A month passed. Life slowly returned to normal. James went back to duty. Standing guard. Performing ceremony. But everything felt different now. Tourists still took photos. Children still pointed at his red uniform. But James saw them differently. Saw the vulnerability. The constant potential for danger. Marcus noticed. You're quiet these days, just thinking about what happened. James nodded. Every day, it'll get easier. With time, would it? James wasn't sure. That evening, he attended Emily's school play. She played a flower in a garden scene. She forgot half her lines, but smiled the whole time. Sarah held his hand in the audience. Thank you for being here. I promised I wouldn't miss it. To the play, Emily ran to them. Did you see me, Daddy? You were perfect. They went for ice cream. Walked through the park. Talked about everything except bombs and terrorists and life and death decisions. For a few hours, James was just a father. Just a husband. Not a hero. Not a guard. Just James. Later that night, after Emily was asleep, James sat on the back porch. The stars were clear. London's light pollution usually hid them, but tonight they shone through. Sarah joined him, wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. Do you regret it? She asked. Any of it. James thought about the question. About the bomb, about Volkov, about all the choices that led him here. No, he said finally. I did what I had to do. Would you do it again? That was harder to answer. Would he risk everything again? Risk his family, his life? I hope I never have to find out, James said. Sarah leaned against him. They sat in silence, watching the stars. The next morning, James put on his uniform, checked his appearance in the mirror. The same ritual he'd performed for 8 years. But when he looked at his reflection, he saw something different. Not just a ceremonial guard. Not just a soldier. He saw someone who'd stared death in the face and refused to blink, someone who'd made impossible choices and lived with them. Someone who'd saved hundreds of lives because he was willing to risk his The bearskin hat felt heavier now. So did the responsibility. James arrived at the palace early. The morning sun painted the walls gold. Just like that Tuesday, when everything changed, tourists gathered at the gates. Cameras ready. Children on shoulders. James took his position. Stood perfectly still. His face showed nothing, but his eyes moved, scanning, watching, always. Alert because he'd learned something that Tuesday morning. Something he'd carry for the rest of his life. Evil doesn't announce itself. It hides in gray jackets and ordinary faces. It plants bombs and walks away. But courage doesn't hide. Courage stands in red uniforms and refuses to run. Courage cuts wires with trembling hands. Courage chooses others over self. That's what it meant to be a guard. Not just of palaces and monarchs, but of people. Of innocence. Of life itself. James Mitchell understood that now, and he would stand guard. Ready, for as long as he was needed. The ceremony began. Drums echoed across the courtyard. The crowd cheered, and James stood perfectly still, watching over them all, a silent guardian in the morning light.